Eddie Munson. Who did not end up loving Eddie? The beloved fallen hero from Stranger Things Season 4, played by Joseph Quinn. He left such a huge impact on the fan base. People are wishing for his comeback all through Season 5, and have never stopped talking about him. They even gave him a skin to wear in Dead by Daylight. I mean, that's pretty huge. There's not that many Stranger Things characters in the game. But one of Eddie's major storylines, plot points, whatever you want to call it about him, is that he says he always runs. And I wanted to go into that because I thought he ran from some things he could have and didn't run from some things he shouldn't have. And we didn't even talk about some other things that he did run from. So, I'm Alex from Sandro Says. Please leave a like and a subscribe on the video, and let's get into it. So, Eddie is introduced as the king of Hellfire Club, the Dungeons and Dragons group that Mike and Dustin have joined in high school. Eddie is also mentioned to be a super senior, meaning he failed senior year twice and is basically 20 years old trying to graduate. So that's all we know about him. He's a drug dealer, he has long hair, seems pretty cool, but also doesn't seem to have regard for authority, all that type of stuff. So, off the bat, he's a character that people are drawn to because he's so cool and different and interesting. Where Eddie's story takes a turn is when Chrissy Cunningham, the star cheerleader, wants to buy drugs from him, and he ends up talking with her in the forest. And Eddie, as sometimes lonely guys are known to do, he kind of fell in love with Chrissy right off the bat there. And, invited her back to his house to buy heavier drugs and all that stuff, whatever. Either way, Vecna had already targeted Chrissy. Chrissy was slated for death, and she got killed in Eddie's apartment, with Eddie standing there watching. And Eddie ran. And this is the start of Eddie's story where he always runs. Now, I don't know what he was supposed to do here, because you're fighting an unknown quantity. There's no thing there to fight. There's just a seemingly invisible force killing. So what benefit does he have from not running? I mean, running would be, okay, if it killed her, it might kill me next. Ironically, not running might have been the best thing for Eddie, because if he stayed there at the scene of the crime, the cops questioned him and locked him up, assuming he was the prime suspect, you would have had 2 other deaths within a couple days that basically exonerate Eddie, because how would he have committed those crimes from behind bars? That's just wild. So, either way, Eddie ends up running, and then, again, people find him. The bullies find him. They're going to beat him up or bring him to justice. One of them gets killed, ironically, at the same time, so now Eddie is a double suspect, and he runs again. At this point, there's no option but running. I mean, going to the police, they think you're the killer. Even if someone gets killed after that, they would say, well, maybe it's a copycat. If you did it after the first one and said, I don't know what happened, I came back and found her like this, that's at least, you might have some type of argument, but once you're around 2 of those, there's no coming back from that. So, I do wonder, though, as much as I'm saying Eddie ran from some things and he didn't run from other things, I think the most obvious thing that Eddie ran from that we know of about him is he ran from adulthood. I mean, he was repeating senior year twice. This was the 80s, small town America. They were pushing people through school at that point. There was no need to fail someone in senior year twice. If he got to senior year, then at that point, just get him out of the school. You don't need him corrupting more youth in the school with whatever his attitude is. And he didn't seem like a person with a bad attitude. He didn't seem particularly stupid. So it almost seems like he's actively trying to fail and stay in high school because he doesn't want to grow up. He's like Peter Pan or something. So I think the interesting metaphor is Eddie's like, I'm always running. Yeah, he's running from growing up and being an adult. And that kind of leads into his demise, because maybe he figures that going out in this blaze of glory, will be better than anything adulthood holds for him, which is interesting and sad. It's a little deeper, I think, than the show probably wanted to go with it, but The last thing I wanted to talk about here is the chain of events that Eddie dies during. Because Steve, as much as it hurts Dustin's feelings, Steve is right. I mean, Eddie did not need to sacrifice himself. This was one of those times that he should have run and then he didn't need to here. Let's go through the chain of events. Okay, so the music starts. The bats are alerted. The bats arrive. Eddie and Dustin hide inside the trailer, which they have fortified. The bats find a couple ways into the trailer, but not really. As soon as they start breaking in a little bit more, Dustin and Eddie say, okay, our job here is done. Let's get back to the regular world. The bats are distracted. As soon as Dustin is through the portal, Eddie says, well, you know what? Maybe they need to be distracted more. Now, there was no sign that the bats had given up their pursuit and were heading back to the Creel house. They were still at the trailer. So Eddie deciding at that point, well, I need to distract them more, is strange because he basically goes out on his bike, takes the bats in a loop, and then takes them back to the trailer, but he stops short of the trailer. Again, he starts getting flashbacks of like, I always ran and I want to defend Chrissy and all this silly stuff. And he just stops in the middle of nowhere to fight them. Like, he doesn't even try to use the trailer as, like, protection or cover. He just stops. And it seems very obvious he wants to die because you didn't need to do that. There was no indication that the bats were heading back to the Creel house. There was no indication that they would have gotten there fast enough anyway. The bats actually died within, like, a minute from this point. So if you ran back to the house and even if you got through the portal with Dustin, they could have celebrated, started playing some D&D, cracked open an orange soda. The bats are dead. So it is frustrating to see. I know that he had to sacrifice it, but I think when you look in the context of Eddie didn't want to grow up, this adventure was his D&D campaign. He got some excitement and he was like, you know what, I'm going to see what the next realm is because maybe something there is, maybe my rebirth or my next life will be better than this one, which is intrepidly sad, but I think that's what was going on here. So what are your thoughts? Do you think Eddie was afraid of growing up? Do you think Eddie was just trying to do his best to kill time and he didn't plan on dying? Do you think he was just really bad at math and science and just kept failing? Who knows? Let me know in the comments. Again, this was Alex from Sandro Says saying, please have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Take care.